President Biden has announced the release of additional disaster assistance funds for Puerto Rico, authorizing an increase in the level of federal funding for public assistance projects undertaken in the Commonwealth of Puerto Rico as a result of Hurricane Fiona in September of this year, increasing the federal share for public assistance to 90% of total eligible costs, except for aid previously approved at 100%. And meantime, as Puerto Rico continues to recover from Hurricane Maria, FEMA has just announced the allocation of over $1 billion to help reduce the impact that other natural disasters may have on the island. These funds include measures such as the use of components that are more resistant to wind, changes from low water crossings to bridges, storm runoff management on municipal and state roads, elevating structures in flood-prone areas, and among other techniques to help strengthen reconstruction projects. To date, FEMA has obligated nearly $28.6 billion for over 10,000 projects that will support Puerto Rico's recovery. Well, meantime, FTX says it owes more than $3 billion to its creditors. That's all according to a bankruptcy filing in Delaware on Saturday. Creditors of the Bahamas-based cryptocurrency exchange are owed at least $100 million each. While the company names were redacted in the court documents, they are believed to include major firms like BlackRock and Sequoia Capital. The collapse of the cryptocurrency exchange has also left an estimated 1 million individual investors facing substantial losses. FTX is scheduled to present more information Tuesday before a U.S. bankruptcy judge. Meanwhile, the Royal Bahamas Police Force is investigating possible criminal misconduct in the company's collapse. And switching gears now, the Turks and Caicos is just one country in the Caribbean dealing with an influx of illegal guns. Our One Caribbean News' Deandra Hamilton has the details on a recent bust and what leaders across the region are doing to address the issue.
As countries across the region grapple with the issue of illegal guns and ammunition entering their borders, the U.S. Department of Homeland Security recently reported that it intercepted multiple shipments of firearms and ammunition destined for the Turks and Caicos Islands. There is now also a Homeland Security officer stationed in the TCI. The disclosures were made by the Ministry of Immigration and Border Services and Governor of the UK Overseas Territory last week. While the ministry did not provide in-depth information on when and where and how the guns were to be smuggled in, residents breathed a sigh of relief that the contraband was blocked. The issue of illegal guns and ammunition making its way to regional shores was a pressing matter for Caribbean leaders at the 9th Summit of the Americas held in June. Prime Minister of Jamaica Andrew Holness at the time called for more action to help tackle the issue.
A significant number of countries are experiencing an increase in illegally trafficked weapons and small arms into our borders from within the region.
A week ago, the Jamaican Prime Minister declared a state of emergency for several parishes due to the upsurge in violent crime.
His Excellency, the Governor General, the Most Honorable Sir Patrick Allen, declared a state of public emergency in the parishes of Clarendon, St. Catherine, and specified areas in the parishes of Kingston and St. Andrew.
While unpopular and inconveniencing, Mr. Holness defended the need to cut crime and reduce the threat to public order.
We have seen an increase in criminal activities in these areas, and indeed a threat to property and, in some instances, public disorder.
Deandra Hamilton reporting.
All right, thanks so much, Deandra. Meantime, the U.S. Coast Guard has rescued more than 100 migrants from an overloaded boat just off the Florida coast. The vessel was about to hit a sandbar south of Whale Harbor in Upper Key West Monday morning. The Coast Guard received reports of several people in the water. Now, it's unclear exactly how many people were in the boat or what country they came from. Rough conditions have slowed the rescues. Crews are battling up to 10-foot waves and 25-mile-per-hour winds in this rescue. Well, switching gears now, the Tobago tourism industry is set to receive a further boost in economic activity for the rest of the year. That's as cruise ship visitors return to the island on Sunday. The island's cruise ship season began with the maiden voyage of Silver Moon, bringing just over 1,000 visitors on Monday. Rhapsody of the Sea also made its maiden call with over 2,000 visitors. Port officials anticipate a bumper cruise season for the 2022-2023 season after COVID. That pandemic caused a closure of the industry for 2 years. The terminal building was a hub of activities as taxi drivers, tour guides, tour operators, and tourism officials interacted with the passengers. A total of 42 vessels with a projection of approximately 64,000 passengers are expected to call a Scarborough and the Charlottesville during the cruise ship season, which runs from 2022 to April of 2023. Secretary for Tourism Natisha Burris expressed excitement for the return of cruise arrivals in Tobago.
I am just happy to see that we're finally fully open. I mean, it's one thing to begin to welcome airlift passengers, which we started doing in January, but this is the first time we've been able to welcome international passengers via sea. And I mean, I'm just excited for the possibilities of us growing the sector once again and attracting more vessels of this size, certainly.
Well, meantime, Royal Caribbean says its fifth ship in its Oasis class will now call Port Canaveral, Florida home for at least the next 2 years. Weighing more than 230,000 tons with a total capacity of nearly 7,000 passengers. Wonder of the Seas is currently the largest cruise ship in the world, and it's now making its way to St. Thomas in the U.S. Virgin Islands. A cruise in all that's spending 7 nights across the Caribbean.
As it leaves the port, a close-up shot will show you just how huge the Wonder of the Seas is. This is just its second departure from Port Canaveral, and we're talking to some of those excited guests on board Royal Caribbean's record breaker.
Brand new ship, very large.
Weighing more than 230,000 tons, with a total capacity of nearly 7,000 passengers, Wonder of the Seas is currently the world's largest cruise ship. After previously sailing this year out of Fort Lauderdale in Europe, now Royal Caribbean says its fifth ship in its Oasis class will call Port Canaveral home for at least the next 2 years.
Please come join us on our beautiful Wonder of the Seas.
Joanne Cotterman with the cruise line now says all guests are welcome, a big change from when cruising restarted a year ago during the pandemic.
We will take guests whether they're vaccinated or not vaccinated, and we've actually just eliminated the testing requirements as well for all guests, no matter what their vaccine status is.
By eliminating COVID-19 rules, Cotterman says Royal Caribbean is boosting ticket sales.
I think that the industry is doing a lot to keep everybody safe and secure, and it should be good.
And hopefully they'll have better weather out at sea. After 7 nights across the Caribbean, Wonder of the Seas is scheduled to return to Port Canaveral next Sunday morning and depart on another trip next Sunday afternoon.
And the ship is scheduled to make a stop in the U.S. Virgin Islands in St. Thomas on Wednesday, and also on the trip, a stop in the Bahamas and St. Martin.